Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Normal Guy of the North here. Today we're diving into one of the most underrated but vital topics in World of Warships, support ships. These are the ships that might not always top the damage charts, but they win games by keeping teammates alive, spotting enemies, laying smoke, and turning the tide with utility. We're going to break down 5 of the best support ships in the game. The light cruiser Atlanta, the heavy cruisers Baltimore and Des Moines, the support carrier Essex, and finally the light cruiser Worcester. For each, I'll cover why they shine in WoWs, what roles they fill, and then tie in their fascinating real-world history. You'll see that many of the support roles these ships excel at in-game actually line up with what they did historically, so grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's get into it. In World of Warships, Atlanta is the definition of a support ship. She's loaded with 16 rapid-firing 127mm dual-purpose guns. That means her DPM is off the charts for her tier, and she's constantly raining fire on destroyers, cruisers, and even battleships caught broadside. But Atlanta's real strength lies in her radar consumable and her ability to operate from behind islands. When you time her radar right, enemy destroyers hiding in smoke or contesting a cap are suddenly exposed, and your team can erase them. Atlanta's weaknesses are just as clear. She's fragile, with low HP and paper-thin armor. Get caught in the open by a battleship and you're back in port. But if you know how to use Island's line of sight and her radar range, Atlanta is an incredible support ship that dictates the pace of destroyer play. Historically, that role lines up almost perfectly. The Atlanta-class light cruisers were designed as destroyer leaders and fast escorts. They carried those same 5-inch dual-purpose guns, meant to chew up aircraft and harass surface ships. USS Atlanta herself fought in the Pacific from Midway to Guadalcanal, screening carriers and defending against air and surface threats. Tragically, she was lost at Guadalcanal in 1942 after being heavily damaged by Japanese fire, and accidentally by friendly fire too. But her legacy as a protector, escort, and anti-aircraft screen makes her one of the best historical examples of a support ship. Next up is the Baltimore, and this is where the US heavy cruiser line really starts to come into its own as a support tool. Baltimore is the first U.S. tech tree heavy cruiser to carry surveillance radar, which makes her instantly valuable to any team. That radar is crucial for exposing destroyers, checking smoke, and controlling caps. On top of that, she's durable for a cruiser, with solid armor and concealment that's better than you'd expect for her size. In gameplay, Baltimore works best as a second-line support anchor. She can park near a cap or an island, provide radar coverage when it matters, and put steady HE and AP fire downrange. Her AA is strong, which means she can also protect allies from carrier strikes. The downside, she's not the fastest or flashiest cruiser, and she struggles if she overextends. But played smart, Baltimore is one of the most dependable support cruisers in the game. Historically, USS Baltimore, CA-68, was the lead ship of her class and commissioned in 1943. She served in multiple Pacific campaigns in World War II, protecting carrier task forces, bombarding shores, and escorting operations across the Philippines and beyond. After the war, she was recommissioned during the Korean War era, serving as a reliable fleet asset until finally decommissioned in 1972. Like in game, the Baltimore wasn't the flashiest ship, but her balance of durability, firepower, and fleet protection made her a classic heavy support cruiser. Now let's move up the tech tree to one of the most famous U.S. heavy cruisers in the game, the Des Moines. If Baltimore is a dependable workhorse, Des Moines is a full-blown support powerhouse. She brings surveillance radar with longer range, devastating 203mm autoloading guns, and some of the best anti-air in the game. What makes Des Moines such a strong support ship is her ability to control zones. Plant her near a cap, pop radar, and suddenly every destroyer in range is in deep trouble. Her insane rate of fire lets her keep constant pressure on enemy cruisers and battleships, while her radar makes her the ultimate DD counter. If there's a Des Moines locking down a flank, you feel it. The weaknesses? Positioning is everything. She's a big target, and if you show broadside, battleships will punish you hard. Her concealment isn't great, so you often need islands to hide behind, but once set up, she's arguably the best radar cruiser in the game for pure support value. Historically, the Des Moines-class cruisers were revolutionary. USS Des Moines CA-134 was the first U.S. ship to mount automatic 8-inch guns. That gave her a rate of fire unheard of for heavy cruisers, which in real life meant she could lay down supporting fire far faster than any contemporary. Commissioned in 1948, she came too late for World War II, but served during the early Cold War. She never fired in anger, but her design symbolized the peak of the gun cruiser era before missiles made them obsolete. Just like in World of Warships, her role was about overwhelming firepower and fleet presence. Now let's shift gears to something completely different, the Essex-class aircraft carrier. In World of Warships, USS Essex is unique because she's not a strike carrier focused purely on damage. She's a support carrier that brings tools no other class can offer, specifically the smoke curtain generator on her tactical squadrons. This consumable lets Essex lay down smoke screens for her allies. Picture a battleship pushing into a cap under fire. Essex can cover them, letting them reposition or hold ground without being shot to pieces. That's game-changing utility. Combine that with her patrol fighters, spotting ability, and the pressure her planes can put on enemy destroyers, and you've got a carrier that can shape the battle in ways no other ship can. The trade-off is obvious. Essex doesn't deal as much raw damage as strike carriers. Her planes are more about utility than destruction, and the carrier herself is vulnerable. Her flight deck armor is weak, and she relies heavily on her team to protect her. But in coordinated play, Essex is incredible. Few ships can save a teammate like she can. Historically, the Essex-class carriers were the backbone of the U.S. Navy's Pacific Fleet in World War II. USS Essex, CV-9 herself, was commissioned in 1942 and fought in almost every major Pacific campaign. Tarawa, Kwajalein, Truk, the Marianas, and more. After the war, she was modernized, served in Korea, was part of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and even recovered the Apollo 7 astronauts in 1968. That's nearly 3 decades of service. In real life, Essex-class carriers were all about support, projecting air power, defending the fleet, and giving allies the cover and firepower they needed to win. Just like in the game, they weren't always the biggest damage dealers, but they were the backbone of fleet support. Our final pick is the Worcester, a Tier 10 light cruiser that's often overlooked, but in terms of support value, she's top tier. Worcester carries rapid-firing 152mm dual-purpose guns that put out an incredible volume of HE shells. She's a destroyer's nightmare, constantly peppering them with fire and forcing them to retreat. But what makes Worcester shine is her anti-aircraft capability. She's one of the best AA ships in the game, able to shred incoming squadrons and protect nearby battleships and cruisers from carrier strikes. Add in the option to take surveillance radar, and she becomes a flexible support ship that can both defend the skies and expose destroyers on the surface. The weaknesses are the flip side of her strengths. Worcester is fragile for a Tier X cruiser with thin armor and a citadel that punishes mistakes. She requires careful positioning, constant awareness, and usually an island to shield her, but when played right, she's one of the best fleet defenders in the game. Historically, the Worcester-class cruisers were the last all-gun light cruisers built for the U.S. Navy. Commissioned in 1948, USS Worcester, CL-144, was designed with dual-purpose 6-inch automatic guns that could engage both aircraft and surface ships. She served for only a decade before being retired, as missile technology quickly made her design obsolete. Still, her emphasis on anti-air and fleet protection shows exactly why she was conceived as a support cruiser, and in World of Warships, she fulfills that same role. So how do these 5 ships compare? Each brings its own unique support flavor. Atlanta is your destroyer hunter, providing radar and a wall of shells to keep enemy DDs at bay. Baltimore is the balanced workhorse, durable and dependable with radar that locks down caps. Des Moines is the zone control king, combining radar with overwhelming DPM to dominate flanks. Essex is the utility carrier, using smoke screens and spotting to shape the battle in ways no other ship can. Worcester is the fleet defender, shredding planes, harassing destroyers, and keeping teammates safe. Together, they represent what support truly means in World of Warships, not just farming damage, but creating opportunities for your team to win. At the end of the day, support ships don't always make the highlight reels, but they're often the reason your team walks away with a win. Whether it's Atlanta exposing a destroyer, Baltimore holding a cap, Des Moines locking down a flank, Essex saving a push with smoke, or Worcester shredding a carrier strike, these ships change the game in subtle but powerful ways. Historically, that's exactly what they were built for. These weren't just war machines, they were protectors, escorts, and force multipliers, and World of Warships does a great job capturing that essence. So if you're looking to expand your port with ships that help your team in ways damage numbers don't always show, these 5 are some of the best support picks out there. And that wraps up our look at the best support ships in World of Warships and the real history that shaped them. What about you? Do you play support ships, or do you prefer going for raw damage? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Thanks for watching. I do appreciate it, and please feel free to click on the videos on your screen for more World of Warships content. But as always, take care, stay safe, and I wish you all the best. See you in the next one, and bye for now.